"Don't you want to try the coffee I made just for you, darling?" James asked, his lips curling into a smile that never reached his eyes. I sat stiffly at Nina's grand dining table, surrounded by the delicate clink of silverware and the soft murmur of family chatter. But all I could focus on was the steaming cup in front of me. The coffee carried a faint metallic tang, a smell that twisted my stomach into knots. My name is Christina. I'm 29 years old. And I never imagined I'd be sitting here wondering if my own husband was trying to poison me. But after 3 years of marriage and countless suspicious bouts of accidental food poisoning, I had learned to tread carefully. Especially around Nina. She had a way of orchestrating chaos with an innocent smile. And James, well, he wore that very same smile now. "How thoughtful of you," I forced out, curling my lips into a smile that felt like it might shatter any second. Inside, my thoughts raced. The aroma rising from the cup wasn't coffee as I knew it. It reminded me of last month when Nina offered me tea and I ended up in urgent care with symptoms no doctor could explain. She swore she had made her tea the same way she always did. I didn't believe her then, and I didn't believe her now. Across the table, Nina stirred her untouched cup, her eyes locked on me. "James has turned into quite the barista lately," she said, her smirk sharp as glass. "Experimenting with new brewing methods. Just for you." The way she lingered on "for you" sent an icy shiver crawling down my spine. I had noticed the subtle signs. James's frequent visits to Nina's house under the guise of planning a surprise for our anniversary. The hushed conversations that ended the moment I walked in. The strange text messages I glimpsed on his phone. And now, this cup of coffee. Lifting the cup, I pretended to sip, my eyes never leaving their faces. That fleeting glance they exchanged was all I needed. It screamed of conspiracy. "Oh, would you look at that?" I said suddenly, feigning distraction as I glanced at my phone. "Urgent work call." "Nina, mind if I use your study?" "Of course." Nina replied smoothly, though her smile was tighter than before. As I moved past her, I stumbled deliberately, brushing against the table. In the chaos of steadying myself, I switched our cups, my hand quick and steady despite my racing heart. "I'm so clumsy," I muttered with an embarrassed laugh. "Just don't break anything," Nina said through gritted teeth. With a polite nod, I disappeared into the study, my pulse thundering in my ears. From the doorway, hidden by shadow, I watched as Nina absent-mindedly raised the cup to her lips. My stomach twisted. Part of me wanted to stop her, to scream, but another part needed the truth. Too many nights bent over in pain. Too many hours in sterile emergency rooms. Always after meals shared with them. Always brushed off with excuses. "Maybe it was something you ate earlier. Maybe you're just under the weather." No, I knew better. It hadn't always been like this. When I first met James at a Nashville wedding 3 years ago, he was all charm and tenderness. Nina seemed warm to inviting me into the family, helping plan the wedding, smiling as though I truly belonged, but the signs were there. The deliberate accidents, wine spilled on my dress during big events, dishes that made only me sick. The incident started small, a stomachache here, a rash there, and James, always ready with a soothing excuse. The worst was 2 months ago, breakfast at their house. Hours later, I was in a hospital bed, wires and monitors surrounding me. And now, here I was again, watching, waiting. The doctors had once found traces of something in my system they couldn't identify, but James convinced everyone it was nothing more than expired medication I'd accidentally taken. That memory seared through me as I gripped the doorframe now, my pulse hammering. From the study, I watched Nina lift the poisoned cup again. Her hand trembled slightly as she took another sip. The metallic scent lingered in the air, stinging my nose, making me shudder. A beat later, she set the cup down, her face drained of color. "James." Her voice cracked, shaking. "Something's wrong." James looked up from his phone, confusion flickering in his eyes until horror dawned on his face. He bolted upright, his chair crashing to the floor. "Nina, what's happening?" Her hands were trembling violently now. I don't feel... She staggered to her feet, clutching the table. "What did you put in that coffee, James?" I demanded, stepping into the light. My phone was already recording. James dropped to his knees beside her, his face ashen. His words slipped out in a frantic whisper, but the silence of the room carried them clear as day. "That wasn't supposed to be your cup." Nina's eyes widened in shock, realization crashing over her. Her body convulsed, her voice desperate. "Call an ambulance," she gasped, sliding helplessly to the floor. "Please." "I can't." I dialed 911 instantly, my hands steady. My voice calm despite the chaos unraveling before me. "Emergency services, this is 1542 Maple Grove Drive," I said firmly. "My sister-in-law is having a severe reaction to something in her coffee. She's conscious but seizing. Please send help immediately." Beside me, Nina's body shook violently, her breaths ragged. James knelt, panic etched across his features. His perfect plan had just imploded. "Stay with us." "Nina, please." His voice cracked. Nina's eyes, usually so sharp and cold, locked onto mine with raw fear. "Christina." She gasped, her lips trembling. "You switched the cups." "You knew." "Yes, ma'am," the dispatcher assured through my phone. "Help is on the way. Please stay on the line." James grabbed Nina's hand, frantic. "This wasn't supposed to... it wasn't meant for you." "Shut up, James." Nina snapped, her anger slicing through her pain. For a moment, fury eclipsed her suffering. "This is your fault. You promised it would only make her sick enough to miss the board meeting next week. You swore it couldn't be traced." The words hit me like ice water. My blood ran cold. The board meeting. My biggest client proposal. The one Nina had been trying to steal at her firm. My mind connected the dots like lightning. The tea last month. The hospital stay 2 months ago. None of it had been coincidence. The tea. I whispered, my voice low but unshaken. "And the breakfast 2 months ago? Those weren't accidents, were they?" Nina doubled over, her face contorted in agony. "The tea was supposed to keep you home during the Johnson contract pitch. But you went anyway." She clutched her stomach tighter, words tumbling out in gasps. James said, "We just needed to discredit you, make clients think you were unreliable." Outside, the wail of sirens tore through the quiet neighborhood. James leapt to his feet, backing away, his eyes wild. "Stop it, Nina. You don't know what you're saying." But Nina's gaze burned into me with bitter clarity. Her voice was ragged, but her confession was unmistakable. "I know exactly what I'm saying," she spat. "We've been planning this for months, ever since you started outperforming me at every client meeting. James was supposed to make sure you drank it." Her words hung in the air like a death sentence. The paramedics burst through the front door, their voices cutting through the chaos as they rushed to Nina's side. I stepped aside, heart hammering, but my mind razor sharp. As they lifted her onto a stretcher, I quietly stopped the recording on my phone and, with swift fingers, sent the video to my private email, then forwarded it to my lawyer for safekeeping. James stood frozen, his world unraveling in front of him. The mask he'd worn so carefully was cracking piece by piece. "I'll ride with her," I told the paramedics firmly. "After all, I need to make sure my sister-in-law gets the proper treatment." I turned then, locking eyes with James. His terror was unmistakable. "And I'm sure the doctors will be very interested in learning exactly what was in that coffee." At Nashville General Hospital, the emergency room was chaos, doctors rushing, Monitors beeping, nurses moving swiftly around Nina's stretcher. I sat in the waiting room, gripping my phone like a weapon, the recording of Nina's broken confession. Replaying in my mind, her words were proof. Her fear was evidence. This was no paranoia. Family of Nina Anderson. A nurse called. I stood immediately, noting James's conspicuous absence. He'd muttered something about parking the car 20 minutes ago and never returned. I'm her sister-in-law, I said, following the nurse through the double doors. How is she? She's stable, the nurse explained, her tone grave, but we found unusually high levels of toxins in her system. The doctor would like to speak with you. Dr. Phillips, a tall woman with streaks of gray in her hair and eyes sharp as steel, met me outside Nina's room. Mrs. Bennett, she said, can you tell me exactly what happened before your sister-in-law became ill? I drew a slow breath, pulled out my phone, and pressed play. The recording of brunch filled the hallway, Nina's panicked voice, her raw confession, James's frantic whispers. I watched as the doctor's professional calm dissolved into alarm. This is very serious, she said, her tone clipped as she scribbled on her tablet. The substance we found isn't something that accidentally ends up in coffee. This was deliberate contamination. At that exact moment, James appeared at the far end of the corridor. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his temples. He'd heard, I saw it in his eyes. Christina. His voice cracked as he stumbled forward. Let me explain. Stay back, Dr. Phillips ordered sharply, pressing the call button. On the wall. Security to room 412. James raised his trembling hands. This is all a misunderstanding. Nina was confused. She didn't know what she was saying. Really? I snapped, pulling up another file on my phone. Then these messages I found between you and Nina last week. The ones where you discussed making sure I'd be out of commission before the Henderson presentation, were those just friendly conversations? The color drained from his face. You went through my phone? He croaked. After I found the vial in your desk drawer? My voice was ice. Yes, and I forwarded everything to my lawyer. I turned to Dr. Phillips. Doctor, I've been hospitalized 3 times in the past 6 months with unexplained symptoms. I need to know if what you found in Nina's system matches mine. The doctor's eyes narrowed, sharp with suspicion. We'll run tests immediately. If it's the same substance, then we're looking at a long, deliberate pattern of poisoning. Security will make sure your husband doesn't leave this hospital. 2 guards arrived, flanking James on either side. His composure collapsed entirely, leaving him pale, desperate, and cornered. The carefully constructed facade of my husband, the man who once swore to love and protect me, was finally crumbling, and this time I had the proof to bury him. Nina. And one, James stammered, his words tumbling over one another. We were just trying to help you slow down. You've been overworking yourself, chasing every big client. Nina thought if we could make you take some time off by poisoning me. My voice cut through his excuse like a blade. My hands trembled with rage, but my tone was steady, cold. How long has this been going on? Was it you who tampered with my food at the Christmas party too? James didn't answer. His silence was confirmation enough. Behind him, through the hospital window, I saw Nina. Her bravado from brunch was gone. Now she looked small, fragile, hooked up to wires and monitors. Fear had finally replaced the smug calculation in her eyes. Detective Mendoza is on her way, Dr. Phillips said quietly beside me. She wanted to take full statements. I nodded, an odd calm settling over me. The truth was no longer a shadow. It was out in the open, and there was no turning back. Within the hour, Detective Mendoza arrived. Her presence filled the corridor, commanding respect without a single raised word. A veteran investigator of domestic abuse cases, she carried the quiet weight of experience. I replayed the recording from brunch. then handed her my phone with the text messages. She studied them intently, her pen scratching across her notebook. "Mrs. Bennett," she said at last, her sharp gaze locking onto mine. "You mentioned prior hospitalizations. Can you walk me through those incidents?" I pulled up a document I'd been carefully compiling for months, dates, times, symptoms, evidence. First time was February. Dinner at Nina's house. I ended up with severe stomach pains and dizziness. The second was April tea at Nina's, then in June, after breakfast at their place. Each time, the symptoms were slightly different, but always severe enough to send me to the hospital, and always after eating with them. The detective's eyes narrowed. "And you've been documenting all of this?" "Yes," I said firmly. Then I reached into my purse and pulled out my backup phone. And I started carrying the second phone. I used it to record conversations. They were careful never to be explicit, but I hit play. Nina's voice filled the quiet corridor, crisp and unmistakable. "The Henderson account is worth millions, James. We can't let her ruin everything. Just stick to the plan. A few days of illness should be enough." James's reply was equally damning. "I've got something stronger this time. She won't make it to the presentation." Detective Mendoza's expression hardened as she listened. Through the glass, I saw Nina shift in her bed, now awake. But her face was pale, her confidence shattered. The weight of exposure had broken her. The hospital's toxicology screens confirmed deliberate poisoning. The detective said grimly, "Dr. Phillips has already identified compounds that don't occur naturally. We'll need samples from your home as well." A sudden commotion broke down the hallway. James was struggling against the security guards, his voice rising in desperation. "I need to speak with my wife," he shouted, his face twisted. "Christina, please, you don't understand. We were trying to protect you." Detective Mendoza stepped forward, her tone sharp as steel. "Mr. Bennett, you're not helping yourself. We already have proof of premeditation." James let out a hollow, broken laugh that echoed through the sterile corridor. "We weren't trying to kill her. We just wanted her to slow down." Nina said if we could make her sick, she'd be forced to rest. "That's not protection, Mr. Bennett," the detective snapped. "That's attempted murder." The color drained from his face. "Murder? No, that's not. We never meant." I stepped closer, my voice calm but laced with venom. "Then, tell me, James, when you put something in my coffee this morning, what exactly was supposed to happen?" He froze. His silence was louder than any confession every time I got sick. Every meeting I missed, every client I nearly lost, I sighed, my voice low and sharp. Wasn't chance. It was both of you testing, adjusting, waiting for the right moment to strike. Nina's lips trembled, her eyes darting between me, the doctor, and the detective. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she whispered, though the weight of her words felt hollow. Dr. Phillips set the tablet down with a heavy sigh. "Intentional. Poisoning isn't an accident, it's a crime. And given today's dosage," her gaze hardened on Nina, "it's attempted murder." Through the glass window, James had sunk into a chair, his once cocky posture shattered. His hands dragged. Down his face, the mask of control completely gone. He looked less like a man fighting for innocence, and more like one watching the noose slowly tighten. Detective Mendoza's voice cut through the silence like steel. "We've seen this pattern before: gaslighting, deliberate illness, then escalation. You didn't want her to slow down. You wanted her eliminated." She turned to the uniformed officers. "Bag every vial, every note, and send them to the lab. Then bring Mr. Bennett inside. He doesn't get to sit this one out." The guards opened the door, pulling James to his feet. He stumbled inside, eyes wild, searching for sympathy that wasn't there. "Christina, listen to me," he pleaded, his voice cracking. "You don't understand. We were protecting you. You were burning yourself out. Nina and we just wanted control back before you destroyed everything. I stepped closer, staring at him with all the rage I had kept buried for months. Control. You tried to kill me for control. No, James, this wasn't about protecting me. This was about power, about greed, about making sure I never stood in your way. Nina broke then, tears spilling down her face as she whispered, "We didn't mean for it to go this far." But I didn't flinch. My voice came out cold, unwavering, like a verdict. It already went too far. The moment you decided my life was expendable, Detective Mendoza nodded at the guards. "Take them both into custody. They can finish explaining themselves downtown." As James and Nina were cuffed, their protests echoing weakly in the sterile room, I finally felt the weight lift. For the first time in months, the fear that had coiled itself around me loosened its grip. The truth was out. The facade was gone, and justice had finally begun its work. "I lost months of my life," I whispered, my voice cracking as I stared at Nina, "and you both of you were right there, watching, taking notes on how your poison tore me apart. What kind of people does that make you?" The silence that followed was suffocating. Outside the hospital room, I heard James being read his rights, his voice drowned beneath the clipped tones of the officers. Inside, Nina's eyes dropped to her trembling hands. Too ashamed or too cowardly to meet mine, I turned away, my decision final. "Detective," I said evenly, "I'm ready to make my formal statement now." The trial stretched 3 weeks, but to me it felt like years. Every morning, I walked into that courtroom and faced the two people who had plotted my slow destruction. The prosecution's case unfolded piece by piece like a puzzle I never wanted to solve. The bottles hidden in James's office desk, the meticulous notes documenting each poisoning attempt, their text messages, cold and calculating, mapping out my downfall like a business plan. What haunted me most wasn't just the evidence, it was them. Nina, once so composed, now shrank into her chair, her polished confidence shattered. James kept his head down, refusing to meet my gaze. As if the floor could save him from the truth, Dr. Phillips's testimony left no doubt. She laid out the toxicology reports with chilling precision, proving how the dosages increased over time. Every sample, every adjustment, every escalation, it all pointed to intent, not an accident, not desperation. Intent to harm. The pharmaceutical representative confirmed the final piece. James had stolen the compounds through a college friend working in research. It was planned, deliberate, merciless. This wasn't corporate sabotage. The prosecutor thundered in her closing argument. This was systematic. A calculated attempt to eliminate Mrs. Bennett, an attempt that could have easily turned fatal. When the verdict was read, the courtroom held its breath. "Guilty," the foreman declared. On all counts, attempted murder and conspiracy. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I only felt the release of a weight that had been crushing me for months. The judge's words cut through the silence like a gavel to stone. The premeditated nature of these actions, carried out against a family member, demands the maximum sentence. I watched as James and Nina were led away in handcuffs, their eyes hollow, their futures gone. Greed and jealousy had stripped them of everything, their careers, their reputations, their freedom. 1 year later, I stood at the podium at the Nashville Business Leaders Conference, ready to deliver the keynote speech. The irony wasn't lost on me. This was the very stage Nina had tried to keep me from reaching. The Henderson account. The client she and James had been so desperate to steal had instead propelled me forward. It opened doors to new clients, new partnerships, new recognition. Success, I told the packed room, isn't just about talent or hard work. It's about integrity, about trust, about building something real. I paused, scanning the sea of faces. And sometimes the biggest threats to our success come from those closest to us, but when we survive them, we become stronger. The applause that followed was thunderous, but the real victory came later that evening. An email from the Henderson firm confirmed they were renewing their contract for another 3 years. I leaned back in my chair, smiling. Not because Nina and James were rotting in prison. The paper had run a small article about their sentences that morning, but I hadn't bothered to read it. My smile came from something else entirely, because I finally understood the best revenge isn't destruction, it's survival, it's success. It's proving that no matter how hard they tried to break me, I was unbreakable. And that, I realized, was the true story worth telling in the dark revenge book.